Just so everyone knows, Renee and I have agreed here, if I start coughing mid-sentence, she's going to take up right where I left off. So we're going to tag team this if necessary. It is Tuesday, September 24, 2024. The time is 7:00 p.m. I call this meeting to order. Roll call.
Councilmember Tyne,
Here.
Woods,
Here.
Luck,
Here.
Memora,
Here.
Hendricks,
Here.
Christensen,
Here.
Memskavera.
Here. Next item is approve the agenda. The only change we've talked about is adding committee reports to item 9 on the regular agenda, since we didn't get to that in the work session. Next item is approval of the consent agenda. 3.1, approval of the bill list dated September 19, 2024, and payroll ledger dated September 20, 2024. And 3.2, excused absence for Councilmember John Woods for the regular council meeting on September 10, 2024. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there?
Second.
Thank you.
Question.
Sure.
If a council member attends by Zoom or whatever this is, Teams, are they officially here or not? Can they vote or can they not?
Yes and yes, they are official and they may vote. The definition of meeting defines a meeting as including by telephone, electronically, or other means. That was one of the, and that's the significance of that.
So on that, is it like, so I know when John was on the internet, it was sort of hard to get a connection. If we're having a connection problem and he's having trouble responding consistently, then is that still considered like, so I'm thinking because he was online, then he wouldn't need an excused absence. But if they're having trouble connecting, does that still apply?
Well, you do the best you can.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen, but that's a good point, because I've seen some council rules of procedure, speaking of council rules, where the platforms are specified, that there's a performance standard that says you can participate remotely, but the platform that you use has to have this level of functionality so that you don't avoid that problem.
Okay. Great. So-
I consider myself not to have been here.
Yeah, he didn't vote.
Perfect.
You weren't imposing presence,
I
John.
was
He didn't vote. I don't know what the problem is.
Any,
having internet issues.
so any further discussion? And that should probably be included, just
Yes.
that sort of thing, because that's new for us, being able to participate. Great. Thank you, Councilmember Hendricks, for bringing that up. Any other discussion on the consent agenda? Roll call.
Councilmember Tyne,
Yes.
Woods,
Yes.
Luck,
Yes.
Memora,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Hendricks,
Yes.
Memskavera.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks, Scott. Up next is citizen comments. Citizens are asked to limit their comments to 5 minutes. Council will take comments into consideration, but will decisions at this time. Council will not engage in back and forth dialogue, but may respond to a speaker with brief factual information or refer the speaker to the town manager to arrange a meeting with an appropriate staff member for a discussion of the speaker's topic at an appropriate time. However, the council has no obligation to engage with the speaker by either of the foregoing methods or at all. We received two citizen comments that were published in the agenda regarding the tennis courts and pickleball courts. And then here on our sign-in sheet, we first have Susan Adams. Is Susan Adams here? Okay. Laura Johnson is the next sign-up. If you would come up to the podium, please state your name and address for the record, and then I'll begin your 5-minute timer. I'm gonna set a new rule for everyone. Here's what I'm gonna do. This means you have 10 seconds left and everybody gets exactly 5 minutes. And when I hold this up and then put it down, that's 5. And it's going to be for everyone. Go ahead.
Okay, can you, I don't know if this is on. Okay, great, thank you. My name is Laura Johnson and I
You would have to
reside
state your name and
at
address.
334A Ensign Drive in Corinthian Hill in Dillon, Colorado. And I'm actually here to thank the town staff for all the work that they have done throughout their careers to make this town, this tiny little town of Dillon, a town that we all love and are willing to fight for. And I want to thank them for all the work they've done throughout their careers to make this town the way it is. Ned West as planner, Dan Burrows as engineer, and Scott O'Brien as public works have created a beautiful little hamlet with great streets, great water and sewer, great zoning, great open space and parks, and pretty darn good in developments up until Uptown 240. The failure of Uptown 240 was in no way the town staff's fault, and I want to make sure that I appreciate how hard the town staff has worked to make it become a viable project now. Our town staff has a very broad job. It goes from backyard grading permits to driveways to homes to PUDs like the one we are looking at now for the 4 individual lots at the Best Western. When I look back at the last successful large-scale PUD, it would be Dillon Ridge in the 1990s. I can assure you then that the town council then, I believe Ed Baker was at the helm, serving both on the town council and head of P&Z, required the Dillon Ridge application to fully show down to the topo lines what could be done under the existing zoning and what could be done under the PUD. It took several years for this development to get approved due to the diligence exhibited by the town council and the town council allowing the town staff to fully and completely examine use under the current zoning and use with the proposed PUD. It is unfortunate that 30 years later, we no longer have that town council. Instead, we have a town council that rushed through a finance agreement and rushed through the approval of a PUD, never really asking the town staff what a development could look like under the current zoning. This is what has led to all the confusion, misunderstandings, misrepresentations, and quite honestly, sadly, sometimes acrimony among the citizens and the town council. But I want to tell you how much I appreciate the town staff for everything they have tried to do with this PUD of the 4 individual parcels, despite the hurdles thrown at them by our town councils. Not all of you were on that council that rushed this finance agreement and PUD through, but those of you who were, I hope you think back as to why it was so important to push through this finance agreement and PUD that you ran over your own town staff and your own town attorneys. I would like to thank the mayor and 4 of the 6 council members sitting up here now who courageously, regardless of their own beliefs, asked for more information and transparency, which in turn slowed down the process the prior council rushed through. I thank our town manager, Nathan Johnson, for steering this ship under the most difficult circumstances and managing and supporting the town staff who have done wonderful things for our town. And I hope that all of them stick with us for a much better future. I also want to thank Adrian and Mary Kay, who have clearly handled this with integrity and professionalism. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Ned. Thank you, Dan. And thank you, Scott. And thank you, Town Council, for allowing me to speak tonight.
Thank you, Laura. Up next, I have Rob Dunk. I can't really read the last name, but Rob David. He left. Okay. Eddie O'Brien. Did you care to share a comment tonight? If you would, state your name and address for the record, then I'll start your 5-minute timer. Excuse me.
My name is Eddie O'Brien. I live at 18 Spinning Leaf Trail in Silverthorne, Colorado. I'm also an owner of 3 different properties here in Dillon along Lake Dillon Drive. So I have an interesting one here. This has nothing to do with what's been going on with the planning and zoning. So you'll have to excuse me for that. So what I'm here for is I've been working with a young guy who wants to open a coffee shop. And over the last 3 weeks, there has been a location. He's pulling a lease together right now. He's met with staff, and he's got a pretty good amount of finances behind him to open this coffee shop in the core area. So the actual location is 124 Main, number 107. So you know where the low building is, the short building. So it's the 3-story building next to it where Dr. Youngman used to be. So he's got a first floor spot there on the corner. So what I'm asking for support from him from the town, I've got a couple of 3 things here I'd like to ask for. One is he has a $6,000 bill for parking. I'd really like that to be removed. So they're telling him that he's got 3 spots and he's got to pay $2,000. So if the town council's willing to remove that, that would really be helpful. We should have an incentive program set up in the town. In this case, the incentives that I would offer him if I were working with the town council would be $7,500. That would cover a sign. That would cover, for the first time, a piece of art going into the town core. And that artwork would be on the concrete walls around the area that the town owns. And that would end up being a mural similar to some of the other towns that are going on. So I'd like to see that occur as well. There's also, again, in that 3-story building, the town owns around it and the walls around that building. So we'd have to ask for permission to go ahead and allow him to put in tables and chairs on town property as well as in that the area that he already is in the process of running. He'd also like to be able to, and I'll tell you where that is because it's pretty funny. It's behind the concrete wall next to the dead grass. That's his description. So there you go. So also we would like to add lighting into that area as well. So I'd really like to see that occur. And I would like to see the town council do that as quickly as possible because he's moving as quickly as he can. Staff has been great with him and they're upholding all the rules and regulations, but let's make a change here. Let's see something really happen for a positive. Number 2 is I want to make a reminder to all of you, and that is the Area 51 apartments. The apartments are the ones being built on the Forest Service property. I want you to realize that there's 165 plus units in there, right? The parking seems to be 1.65 to 1.7 parking spots per unit. So as many as 400 people could be living in that area. Those folks should be able to walk into town. You should not have to worry about parking in town for those 400 people or their cars, and take that into consideration. Anything going within the town, make that happen. Light those sidewalks, turn this thing on. If you want to see an example of it, go to First Friday in Silverthorne. Ask people where they're living. You won't be surprised at how many living on affordable housing. And now you have 135 units in Silverthorne about ready to open. Make sure that you pay attention to that because that's a model for Dillon. So I was asked to do this by a couple of people. The town business owners are stressed to the max, absolutely stressed to the max. The pain building businesses, they're walking in my office trying to find places to go because they understand the building has been sold and the lot in front of them that the town owns has been sold or contracted. I have the same thing going on with the tech center. I have people walking into my office. I'll see you guys later, but I think you got the gist of it.
Still have 5 seconds if you want. Hey, Eddie, just to respond to a couple of those things, I believe this council had a discussion about relieving commercial businesses of those parking requirements already.
Yes,
So that is the intention of the council. I can't speak to the cash ones at this time. And then the walkability from, I like how you called it, Area 51 is also another discussion we've had, both on the abandoned part of the road of County Road 51,
right.
as well as on the south side of the highway. Is that the south, the town side of the highway to be able
I understand, yeah.
to get people from, agreed, because we've had that same conversation, is we want those people on foot coming into town.
Yes. Is that it?
Yes, those are the two I had to.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, that's all I have for people who have signed up. So, but is anyone else here to share a public comment tonight? Great. Moving on to item 5. What's that? Consideration of resolution number 5424, series of 2024. A resolution of the town of Dillon, Colorado to approve the amphitheater use policy.
Sure. Good evening. After our discussion 2 weeks ago, we made a couple of updates, or we made the updates that you asked us for. We removed the section that said full day rentals, and then we changed the timing of the reservation period so that people would learn sooner if they got their reservations. So the reservation period now reads that on the second Monday in May, we will both announce the available dates and open them up for reservations. And then we'll close that reservations on the third Monday in May. So a 1-week reservation period. We didn't put this in there because we didn't want to get too specific with actually how we're going to do it, but internally we've been talking about how we're going to execute this. We intend for now to use the online process that we also use for the Marina Park Pavilion. So it'll actually be an immediate notification that date has been secured. So wanted to also say that that's our plan so far on how we're going to execute this. That's really it. Otherwise it's the same as you've been reviewing.
All right. We've
Got a
worked.
comment on that.
Go ahead, Councilmember.
As I remember, in our last discussion, the majority of council was in favor of half-day rentals if the second half-day was a town event where we controlled the schedule. But if it was a paid event, then there would be rentals. So I'd like to see paragraph A amended to allow half-day rentals when the evening event is a town-sponsored free event.
Yeah.
I sort of remember the consensus being deferring to Jesse's judgment on that one.
Well, we make policy.
And I agree with Dana. I'd like to see that too. I don't know if anybody else.
I think amphitheater rentals, section A, could be reworded. The third sentence, which starts with the town does not allow use of the amphitheater on dates for which the amphitheater is already booked for a concert. I think it should be for a ticketed event.
A paid show, yeah.
A paid show. I mean, what we would all consider a paid show. Concert could mean, you know, anything, a couple of kids playing a guitar.
Can we approve it with like a couple of amendments? If everybody agrees? Yeah, I'm asking you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jesse, are there non-paid concerts where you wouldn't be able to do the event?
Yes. With the quality of bands that we're getting for our free shows now, they do want, some of them would want to load in early.
But our paid shows are Mondays, right?
Free shows.
Free shows are Mondays. That's what I meant. Free shows.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm hearing a comment, and so I'm trying to pursue a discussion here about changing the language in section 4, paragraph A, to more specifically call out a half-day option.
I think the concept And I would be supportive of the concept that if there's a ticketed event and we've got, the usual hullabaloo around an event, it's a big event, people coming in, I think it's fine to not hold any other events on that particular day. I think that's a ticketed event. I think for other town events, we should try to use the amphitheater for use by local residents.
What would be the difference between a ticketed event and a free concert that is of the same magnitude? As far as setup and,
Well, we control
Takeout.
the schedule.
Well, that's a ticket.
We control the schedule if it's a town sponsored event. If it's a ticketed event, then other people, there's a promoter and there's other people involved that control the schedule.
So I wonder if there is somewhere in between where you have room for free shows also that need the amphitheater all day, and where it wouldn't be possible to have a morning event. And so I'm sort of doing this off the top of my head. but-
Well, why can't we just have, well, we know our free shows are on Monday, then Mondays wouldn't
Well, it
apply.
may not be that every year. I mean, we're making policy. Free shows may not be Monday in the future.
Or when we could put, whereas a free show would event, something to the point where a free show would happen or be scheduled.
Or maybe it's something a little less specific, like the amphitheater will be available for nonprofit and commercial private rentals as available. Something like when it's available, unless being used by one of these other things. And
Unless more time is needed to set for a big evening show.
so I think,
something
could we
to-
do that by direction to Jesse? Because that is almost like, to me, it's almost like saying what dates are available. And if we say to Jesse, our intention is that if there is a low hanging fruit, or like a low impact event, that would still qualify as available to rent for a half day rental.
What we could do is what Oliver said and then comma where feasible. So if it's feasible to have a half day event,
Okay.
then we can do it. If it's not feasible, then we won't.
So nonprofit and commercial, the town allows the rental of the amphitheater where feasible for nonprofit and commercial private events on any of the remaining available dates.
Yeah, permits half day rentals where feasible.
So would feasibility be centered around town staff availability?
Be centered around the setup time required for the evening show. Because that's really the determining factors. How early do they?
Well,
Well-
I can't tell you that we're gonna have anybody because it's all seasonal employees and those are very fluid jobs.
Well, what I'm getting at is in the past 5 years, they've had a church service in the morning and they've had concerts at night, except for Bob Dylan was the only big enough one where they need to set up at 10 o'clock. So if you preclude any half-day activities, that's nonprofits and churches won't be able to do anything Sunday morning. So that has not been an issue except for 1 or 2 shows in the past 5 years. So I'd like to maintain that, because it's been working.
Would that sentence cover it then? Then it's allowed, the rentals are available where it's feasible. And then I think Nathan, section E kind of covers town in case staff is not available. It says they can cancel the event if the required staff are not available to staff the event. I was wondering if we should bolster that a little bit, like if there's a certain time period you have to give someone, or I don't know, because you may have staffing and then you may get a staff that gets COVID and you don't have staffing. So I don't,
We use that.
it could happen for any
Any
event.
event, so,
Exactly.
yeah,
So,
so we
but
don't
it's
have
just,
to-
it's a little different when it's somebody else's money on the line and not the town's.
I think if you put that where feasible clause, then it kind of gives you an out. You agree, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Yeah.
Whatever you.
Yeah, yes. I mean, those where feasible, that kind of wiggle room.
Right.
It's, again,
Gives
it's
you
a
an out if
policy
it's not
choice how
feasible.
you draft this, but yes, that would be the effect.
Okay, so I think what we've just workshopped, and I'm gonna run it by the rest of council here to make sure everyone is on board. In section 4A, the town allows the rental of the amphitheater where feasible for nonprofit and commercial private.
Well, half day rentals
Half
is
days.
what we need to include. Because we're saying it can only be full day rentals, so we need to allow half day rentals. If it's a town sponsored evening event, comma, where feasible.
The town allows the rentals of there.
Can I add something, please?
Yeah.
I think this particular exercise tonight is we're exercising the micro before we've talked about the macro. This council's never really agreed on objectives for what we're doing at the amphitheater. And I think that having the season just ended, that maybe we should first review what we liked about what happened this year and what changes we would suggest for 2025 so that we have broad goals that we agree upon. And only after that do we start to look into the minutia and say, how are we going to execute these goals that we're seeking? The season's just ended. I don't think this policy has to be put in place for several months. In my opinion, meanwhile, we're going through crazy times with other things that the council is concerned about. And I don't think this is maybe the correct time to be worrying about this and when we can do it in January.
Is that the consensus among council?
I was actually going to put on future agendas that we discuss amphitheater programming. So I'm kind of along the same lines as John. I think we need to review what's working, what isn't working. Do we want to make that more of a revenue generator in light of decreasing sales tax revenues? I think so. Yeah, bigger picture discussion on the amphitheater issues.
I like that, and I like the opportunity it gives us to invite the public to sort of give more feedback and come in and say, and we can workshop it and say, what kind of music are you liking? What are you not liking? You know, how much do you want to see this thing rented? How much do you not want to see it rented? Do you want to see it rented twice a day or just once? Do you want to see it rented 7 days a week or 3 days a week? I could be on board with that and give us a little more time to engage with the public on this one.
And
Mayor,
there's the potential to generate revenue.
if I might, I did take your all's comments to heart last time, and we are working on a survey to the community as well. So I would love to maybe do that first and then bring those results back to you all for consideration as you have that discussion.
Great. Great.
And who would you survey?
We're gonna do the community, the locals, and then we're also gonna do anyone who bought a ticket over the past 2 years.
So I have a little bit of a concern over that because I think this two stakeholders in Dillon are the taxpayers and the homeowners and the town residents. And that demographic is skewed more towards baby boomers than, amphitheater attendees at some of the paid shows.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll have the very first question is
So-
gonna be, do you live in Dillon or not? And then we'll be able to capture the data based on those demographics.
Yeah, and in the past, the programming was more skewed towards the stakeholders than the general public, which I think is appropriate because that's who paid for it. Or at least the free shows anyway. So I think that needs to be part of the conversation too, before you do a survey. Who are we surveying? Whose voice do we want to listen to? Who's takes precedence on those free shows?
I would say it's both. It's both the people who built it, but it's also the people who are spending hundreds of dollars there every year.
For the paid shows, I agree.
Yeah, so when
the
they buy it,
first
so
show-
if they buy a ticket and then they're
Yeah.
members of the community, so.
And I would encourage Summit Daily to kick around the idea of throwing some polls out there in the paper, because people seem to read the paper more than they pay attention to our words. And maybe even the radio station, let them talk about, have a informal poll of what kind of music do the listeners from Crystal want to hear. So I think the more information we can gather, the better.
Yeah, just historically, I'm getting a lot of complaints from my constituents that we've kind of veered off from our traditional tract where it was a weekend show that was family friendly, that was more geared towards baby boomers, legacy acts, those type of things, tribute bands. And the whole community would gather there and you would see your neighbors and you would sit in a certain place and it was very much a community feel to it. And we're going away from that. And some of the freak shows, that I've been to, I haven't seen any community there and it's not family friendly because they're, pot smoking jam bands and there's a huge cloud of pot smoke over the whole place and you can't bring your kids.
So is it the consensus among council here to pause on this? Try to bring it back in a sort of public setting where we can get survey data from not just the town of Dillon residents, but the people who have spent their money at the amphitheater in the last several years, and invite the public in and kind of look at all that together and ask those questions.
Yeah, I
and
think
get
we
that
need to
information.
have a discussion on what we want that to be.
Yes, I'm seeing some nod.
Kind of-
Can we just make a motion to table it until January?
I don't think we need to table it. Do we need to table it, or can we just
You can just choose not. to
choose
take action.
not to take action and direct staff instead to arrange something along these lines later in the year? Is that, I'm seeing some nods, yes,
Yeah.
and Renee,
Well, yeah, I guess that's what the majority wants. That's what.
okay.
fine.
Right, so staff, we'd like to get some input from the public by way of a survey, including, a broad section of questions about including programming and days of the week and all of that. All the things we're talking about here, uses of the amphitheater. And I would like, the open-ended ones are nice, but then, how many people are gonna really fill it out? So it'd be great to get some really detailed information out of people. However you can. Okay, did I miss anything on that? And then public, stay tuned. We'd love to have you engaged on this. Up next, future agenda list. Anyone, we've now just added that, so that's a perfect segue. Anything else come up? Or I think one of the things we're going to be talking about on this rules of procedure that Jeff was talking about is how you get things on the agenda, and maybe this isn't the best format, but instead it's a little more formal than that. But anyone have anything for today?
I have a new
For agenda items? Go ahead.
I have a new thought that I think it's great that our police chief is working with the new government of Keystone. But I would think it'd be benefit the town if we could find a formal way where we, this council, could open up a dialogue with their council. Maybe not mandatory because it would, but someone suggested meeting with those people once a month so that we could develop, work out the similar problems that we share. I think they have a lot that they can give us as a town, including perhaps sharing a public works building that if we were going to be able to ever finance that somewhere halfway between Keystone and Dillon. But there's a lot of things that we could do together. And I want to say, is there a method where we can formalize communicating with them on a regular basis?
I think we should probably start with a joint work session, and that's a great idea. And talk and just have a discussion with them about where the overlaps are in our Venn diagram and what we can do together. I think that'd be a great opener, and then take it from there about how often that needs to be, or if it's a separate sort of small group of one council member from each one representing something like that. Let's get a joint work session on the books. We've done that certainly with the county commissioners and other groups, so it's been done.
And then did you already add amphitheater programming to future agendas?
Yes.
Okay.
As sort of the general amphitheater conversation. So, do you think that Keystone joint work session should be now or should be at the end of Q1 after they've sort of had some time with our police and we've sort of had the interactions already? Because as of right now, there have, that doesn't start till January 1
Hill would be the guy to ask.
and we haven't signed anything. Right.
Yeah, but I think it's actually a good time for a joint work session. I went to the CML event last, I think Thursday maybe in Breck, and 3 of the Keystone council members attended, happened to sit at their table, and they were very, including Mayor Ken Riley, were interested in a handful of issues, and I pointed them in one direction or whatever to get that information from us, from the town of Dillon. So it's probably a pretty good time. I think they're revved up and trying to figure out all these issues that they've got to figure out. So rather get in before, they make decisions.
Right. So as a future agenda item, is there consensus among the group here to sort of vector toward a joint work session with Keystone? Sure.
Yep.
Kale just said that there's no contracts or anything signed,
Well, so maybe we're not talking about the police yet.
so
We could still,
several months down the line, maybe not next month.
November, December, somewhere in there.
We can reach out to them and see what they want.
They're probably pretty slammed anyway, but yeah, let's put that. So yes, let's start thinking about that and see what makes sense to them and see if they're interested. That sound good?
Yes.
Great. Anything else? Town managers update, Nathan?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Only update I have for you tonight, the Highway 6 sideway project's going really well. Friday, we're doing a bunch of flow fill, so Dan's doing an exceptional job working with Columbine Hills on that. So we're pretty excited about that project coming online here, hopefully this fall. So that's all I have.
Great. Questions or comments for Nathan? Item 8 is the mayor's update. I will officially offer an apology to everyone on Monday for not using my gavel more strenuously for giving it a break that night. I could have done that better. And to any who experienced distress from that, I apologize specifically to you. Council member updates, and then recall we also added committee reports from the work session. Anyone? Next item is adjournment. Those in favor, say aye. Any opposed, same sign. It's 7:38 and this meeting of the Dillon Town Council is adjourned.